For Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia, they're on the clock for this upcoming year. They have to win or they may be out. Making the selections they made in the 2020 NFL Draft hold an increased importance. Can a strengthening secondary, an improving running game, and an attempt to fortify the offensive line be enough to save their jobs and put the Lions on the right track to victory? And what about some other NFL draft national storylines to watch translate onto the field this upcoming year? Walter Cherepinsky is the president of Walter Football Incorporated, and he joined me this week to dish on the Lions and so much more. I'm Kevin McShane. Let's have this conversation. Good stuff. So, Walter, first of all, I want to welcome you to the show, and I'm excited to talk some football with you this afternoon.
Absolutely. Thanks for having me on. Yeah, I'm looking forward to it too.
So, Walter, I'm right in the middle of Detroit Lions country because I live in Windsor, which is the city across from the river from Detroit. So I'm just wondering if I can start you off by asking you, what did you think of the Lions draft, and what do you think the ceiling is for the players that they drafted?
I like the players they drafted. Jeff Okudah could be one of the top cornerbacks in the NFL one day. He has special talent, and it's rare to see a corner go in the top three. It's kind of like what one source told us. It has to be a Champ Bailey type corner. And I think Jeff Okudah has that potential, so I think he can get there. Deandre Swift, I thought, was the best running back in the draft. They got him in the second round. Julian Okudah should be able to rush the passer pretty well across some Trey Flowers eventually. And then they took some shots on linemen. We'll see how they pan out. I think Logan Stenberg could be pretty good. So I thought overall the Lions had a good draft, and there's definitely a lot of potential there.
And tell me, based on what they did versus what you thought they should do, how do you think the Lions made out?
With the player, the actual players, I thought was great. Like I thought they drafted the right players. I think the one mistake they'd made was that they didn't trade down from 3 to 5 or 6. And I understand it was difficult for teams maybe to trade down during the draft. We didn't see a trade until number 13, and that was only a 1-pick swap. So I think maybe with the virtual draft environment, teams had issues with that. But the Lions had 2 months to make a trade with either the Dolphins or the Chargers because they knew the top 2 picks of the draft. They knew they were really on the clock at number 3 because Burrow and Chase Young would be off the board. So to not get anything for Okudah when they could have gotten him at 5 or 6, even if it was like a 4th round pick or 5th round pick, like something small, at least get that. I think they gave up some value, but overall I thought they had a great draft because of the players that they obtained.
And tell me, how important do you think this draft is for both Bob Quinn and Matt Patricia?
I mean, it's huge because if they have another terrible season, they're probably not going to be back. At least one of them won't be back. And I think it's kind of a shame because they're really tied to Matthew Stafford's back. If Matthew Stafford can't stay healthy, if he still has back issues, it doesn't matter how good this class is. The Lions aren't going to be a good team. Chase Daniel is not going to win many football games. So they're really tied to Stafford more than anything, but the draft does help. It's a good class. And if Stafford can stay healthy, I think the Lions have a ton of potential.
And tell me, what do you think about the best player the Lions got versus someone that could, could be a sleeper for them going into this season?
A sleeper for them going into the season, you mean during in the draft
As
class?
part of
I
the
think.
draft class, yeah.
Okay, yeah, I think Logan Stenberg has a ton of potential there. He's a very strong lineman. Maybe he can improve his pass protection a bit. He has some issues with penalties, but I think penalties are something you can clear up with good coaching. And Stenberg definitely has the frame and the upside to be a good guard. I could see him starting, either him or Jonah Jackson, one of them starting on the offensive line at some point in the rookie year. And I like Stenberg a little bit more.
Now, I just want to go back to follow up on one thing you said about the Lions' inability to trade down. Did you put that on Bob Quinn, or did you put that on the fact that it kind of fell where they thought they were going to fall? And what else do you think the Lions could have done to stimulate trade interest in that pick?
I mean, I don't know all the ins and outs, but I assume it was on Bob Quinn to make a trade. So I would put the blame on him. It's not like a huge deal, not getting a 4th or 5th round pick. It's not going to make or break a franchise, but every asset helps. And, you see Bill Belichick kind of meticulously obtaining these assets always. The smart GMs, the Ravens, always seem to get extra picks, and they pan out some of the time. So, maybe the Lions missed out on a potential starter or a good backup by not trading down. Like I said, it's not a huge deal, but it's something. It's an advantage they had going to the draft. They had 2 months to make a trade because they knew the top 2 picks. And the fact that they didn't do it was disappointing. I thought for sure they'd move down. In fact, I think it was Armando Salguero from the Miami Herald who, prior to the draft, the night before the draft, he said that the Lions were preparing as if they had the 5th pick or the 6th pick or something like that, and yet they didn't move. So that was disappointing.
And tell me, when we look at the entire draft, could you just give me your general thoughts on who you think had a good draft and just your general thoughts on the entire draft itself?
I thought the Ravens had a great draft. I mean, getting Patrick Quinn at 28, I thought was a steal. He's someone who could have gone in the late teens. I know there was some interest there from teams, but that didn't happen because unexpected players fell to them. And to get J.K. Dobbins in the 2nd round, I thought was amazing. They claimed to have a 1st round grade on him, and to get him late in the 2nd, and to fill a need too. I thought that was enormous. I thought the Vikings had a very good draft. Granted, they had like 20 picks, but I thought they made some great moves. And conversely, I thought the teams that had the worst draft were the Packers. They seemed to waste their 1st round picks, both their 1st and 2nd round picks on future players who may not even be that good. And I thought the Eagles had a terrible draft because they didn't trade up for CeeDee Lamb when they could have, and then they drafted Jalen Hurts. And I don't hate Hurts. I just think that is a bad fit for him.
Okay, so when we look at the virtual aspect of this draft, I'm just wondering your overall thoughts on the first virtual draft in league history.
Well, it was an okay change of pace to watch. The GMs and the coaches be with their families. Like, that was kind of cool. I didn't like the media presentation of it. They consolidated ESPN's and NFL Network's broadcasts, and we got Trey Wingo, who he felt like he introduced musical acts like every half hour, which is kind of annoying. And also there was like a delay between every time like people spoke to each other, which is, I think annoyed some people. There was some good to it and some bad. I'd prefer the normal draft, but it was, considering the circumstances, not like they had any other choice. So I thought from, given like what they had, I think everyone did a good job overall. I just wish we didn't have as many musical performances.
Yeah, and in terms of Joe Burrow, obviously he'll be asked to do a lot for the Bengals. So I'm wondering if you think running a pro-style offense will help him make the transition to the next level.
Yeah, and I think a couple of things help him too. I believe he has a good supporting cast. They didn't have AJ Green at all last year. He didn't play a single snap. So getting AJ Green back from his injury, I think is going to help a lot. And like suddenly they have a good receiving core with AJ Green, Tyler Boyd. They drafted T Higgins. Not a big fan of T Higgins, but he'll still be there. Auden Tate played well last year, and then they have Alex Erickson. So they have some good receivers. They have Jonah Williams coming back from injury too. He didn't play a snap either last year, so getting better offensive linemen should help Joe Burrow overall. And something I like that the Bengals did pre-draft, they met with Joe Burrow every single week. They actually used the maximum allotted time each week with Joe Burrow. And what they were doing was basically installing the playbook with him, like going over the playbook. So he kind of had a head start over all the other rookie quarterbacks. So I think Burrow will do well. There will be some growing pains, of course, but I think overall he should have a decent rookie year.
And my final question for you is a two-parter in terms of, since we're going through the virtual offseason, which rookies are you most excited to watch, and which do you think will have the best transition because of the virtual offseason? And then what are you looking for generally for your excitement for the overall season?
I think that the running backs definitely stand out. I mean, it's not, you always see rookie running backs do well, and I think that with DeAndre Swift and Clyde Edwards-Helaire, Jonathan Taylor, Cam Akers, J.K. Dobbins, like all these guys who were drafted in the first 2 rounds as running backs, they all have a big advantage over the other rookies, and I think they could all play well in the rookie years. Sure, some of them will bust, but I especially like Swift, Edwards-Helaire, and Jonathan Taylor in their offenses. And Dobbins, I like Dobbins a lot too, but he's going to be back up to Mark Ingram. So unless Ingram gets hurt, Dobbins should see like a decent amount of carries, but not too many. But so I think all the rookie running backs have a big advantage. I also think that the receivers who run routes very well also have a good advantage. Like CeeDee Lamb, I think is going to have a nice rookie year. Jerry Jeudy is someone who some teams described as having, the best football IQ they've seen from a rookie receiver coming in for a long time. So I think Jerry Jeudy should have a strong year, like Justin Jefferson too. Conversely, I think like Henry Ruggs could have issues because he needs to work on his route running ability. And so I think he could struggle a little bit, especially with Derek Carr not taking deep shots enough. So, I think there's a good disparity, and, plus some of the, like the guards, we always see, like rookie linemen stepping in, interior linemen stepping in. So I think they could do well too.
Fantastic, Walter. Thanks for a few minutes, and we enjoyed your insight and perspective, and thanks for joining us today, buddy.
Yeah, thanks a lot for having me on. It was great talking football.
It's always great talking football, buddy. Have a great day.
All right, you too.
Bye-bye.